Welcome to our Urban Legends podcast. I'm Dr. Gloria McDaniel Hall. I've been a teacher, a principal, and assistant superintendent, all within urban schools in Chicago and around the country. Our Urban Legends podcast is a forum for sharing ideas, strategizing together, and supporting each other as we dismantle the deficit narratives sometimes associated with urban education and discuss where and how amazing work is being done. Welcome everyone to another episode of Urban Legends. I know it's been a while, but tonight I'm excited because we are on episode number 44, and you will not believe how I met the guest that I am going to be speaking with today, my friend, Dr. Latish Reed. So we were at the Institute for Urban Research Symposium in Wisconsin last year, right?
Yes.
And I went to present with a colleague of mine. But while I was there, I was like, I'm not going to leave without listening to like the keynote. I went to this keynote and took out my notebook. I was enthralled with Dr. Latish, so much so that when she got done, I went up to her like, can I please take a picture? I bought books and did all kinds of stuff. And then, so that's how I met her. But then how I met her, really met her, is that we have another friend in common. And she got in touch with me and said, I have a friend who is moving to Chicago. You two are so much alike. I want you to be in touch with her. Come to find out, I knew I had seen her somewhere. So I went back to that picture that we took. And then she actually moved like right around the corner from me. So now she cannot get right around the corner. She can't get rid of me. So I'm so excited to speak to Dr. Latish. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's the senior leadership consultant, over 2 decades of experience in education, a former assistant professor at UNC Chapel Hill and UW Milwaukee. She served as Milwaukee Public Schools' first equity leader. She holds a PhD in educational leadership from UW-Madison. She's just published a book that I absolutely love that we're going to be speaking about, that I know that every educator, every school leader, every person who's an advocate for equity needs to have this book on their shelves, So welcome, Dr. Reed, and please, could you, before we even get started with the formal questions, just tell us a little bit about your journey in education. How did you get here?
First and foremost, Dr. Gloria, I just want to say you have been one of the most incredible people that one could meet on their journey to making change and transition and all the things. And I'm so excited to just be in community with you. And thank you for having me. My journey to education was not traditional. I graduated from Marquette and I was a sociology major, and I was thinking I might go into higher education because I was doing admissions work. And there was this alternative certification program that our mutual friend also was a part of, but there was this first cohort and I didn't get in. I was devastated. Because I was like, I think it would be perfect. My mother is a teacher. And I was like, okay, I didn't major. This would be perfect. So real briefly, there was a person that I knew on campus. We weren't necessarily friends. We were acquaintances. But I heard that she got into this program. And I was like, oh, okay. Something. And I just would have to say, the Lord told me to call and say congratulations to her. And I did that. And she said, oh, I feel like so many people didn't get in. Do you know, like 3 weeks later, she called me and she was like, are you still interested in the program? Because like 3 people dropped out and they're looking for people that are willing to like just come. And
Jeez, that is such a cool story.
That is so cool. And that's my friend, Denise Pitchford. Dr. Denise Pitchford is my friend to this day. And that's how I got into education.
I love the connections. Okay, so all the stuff, tell me how you got to AP and all that. So you taught for how long, and then how did you get into leadership? Especially that first position, like the first equity officer.
So I taught for about 4 or 5 years. And, I didn't want to leave the classroom, but I saw so many things that I'm like, if the leader did this, if they did that, so then I was like, well, I might as well do the thing. And so then after a few years, I was tapped on the shoulder by one of my favorite people in the world, Lonnie Anderson. He asked me to come be his AP, and I did that. And then I decided, I want to get a terminal degree in leadership because I feel like I had the mind to help people think about it in different ways. And then I did that, got into the professorate, didn't get tenure. It's in the book. It was the whole story.
Her whole story.
It's in the book. But and then I went back to the district because they had in 2016, where people were excited to talk about equity, they established this role. And so then I became the first equity specialist and worked on the equity policy. I also worked on revising our gender inclusion policy so that we were more inclusive. Great time, very difficult work. And that's what led me to write the book, because I was like, okay, people need some tools, some reflections, something to keep them going in the work because it's very difficult.
We do need tools. I think one of the things we get wrong, and this isn't even one of the questions, is that we think that we could pick up a framework or a tool or a book without doing the work on ourselves that needs to be done. As you talk about what you have in the book, and I love how it starts because you bring in the politics of what's happening in our world. You bring in like connections to Do the Right Thing, which I love that film. And then you talk about that connection to what happened to George Floyd on May 25th, 2020. And it's just like full circle. The purpose of Urban Legends, the purpose of this podcast is to really talk about amazing work that's happening in terms of equity in schools. Because if you just listen to the narrative of what's out there, it would look like, man, nothing's happening. If we talk about the complexities of equity, navigating shades of gray in schools and organizations, with 3 decades almost of educational experience, you've clearly seen a lot. What was the moment or the moments that made you say, I need to write this book right now? Now, I know it had to do something, with your work in the district, but you wrote an amazing text. What was the motivation?
Well, after a year in the work, I would say my first 6 months, everybody was like, oh, we're so happy you're here. You're going to help us. And, everybody was excited about it. But when you start to apply the lens of equity to your work, then you realize you have to do something different. Then you get resistance. And the resistance can be hard. Now, let me be clear. The work happened because of so many people that believed in it. It was just me and one equity intern who was just, a godsend for the work, because she was young. She understood what was happening outside of the district, and she just was awesome support to the work. But I didn't have like a team or anything. I had people that just believed in what I was doing, and people would do extra to support the equity work in the district. And so, they would beg their boss, can I please be on this committee with Dr. Reed? And so it was that. But just as much as we had a lot of people that came around to be innovative in that space, there were people that were strictly against what was happening. And, it sometimes it felt personal, but then, stepping out of it, you realize it wasn't personal. It was people have a fear of their golden egg changing, right? So sometimes, but in a lot of the spaces, there was a lot of resistance. And one time I went to visit my sister in DC. She's a writer. She's more of a fiction writer. But we went to Bus Boys and Poets in DC, and I just started writing,
Mm.
writing. And then I kept writing, and then the work got real hard, but then the pandemic came, and I was like, let me pull that book.
Use this time, right?
I said, wait a minute. Okay, now I have time to really reflect on what I was doing. And I kept writing. And then when I turned 50, I was like, okay, I got to get the book done. And so I ended up quitting, and now I do consulting work and evaluation and professional learning and executive coaching, things that I wanted to do. So
That is amazing. So I like the when I first heard you talking about the shades of gray, I was like, let me pay attention more closely to see what that actually means. And I was stuck as you were speaking because most of us operate in a world that we want stuff to be black or white. Like that's the easiest way,
yes.
especially around equity and justice. Like we don't want to have those conversations. Why is that binary thinking a problem? And what shift does your book invite readers to make?
So the reason why black and white doesn't work is because literally nothing is black and white.
Black or white.
But we want to put things in the box. What we know is what's black and white to me is different to you. And so that's where you kind of get this shade of gray. You have people that are leaders in all the different areas. You got classroom teachers. You have people outside of the field of education. So let me be clear. I'm an educator, and this is from my lens because that's what I do. But I use all kinds of examples, historical, contemporary, it goes across the board. So if you're looking for some way to be reflective, we've all been in school, right? And so it has a school lens, but what we know is everybody has a different perspective. And if we go into it that everything is binary, we're going to be in trouble. Now, I believe that right is right and wrong is wrong. And like James Baldwin's quote, and I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it basically says, we can disagree.
Agree to disagree as long as.
But if
Right.
disagreement has something to do with my humanity, all bets are off.
Right.
And
Right.
so we have to, think about that. But the way we have been indoctrinated in our country is still, some people, they just don't matter as much. They don't. And then you have the powers that be trying to keep the status quo. So that's where you get that pushback. And so I realize, though, there are different phases of this. And you're going to find yourself in different phases. And instead of just fighting against it, recognize it and think about how you can use your sphere of influence. Maybe it's not you controlling the situation, but who you have in your sphere of influence that can move the agenda forward. And really understanding the things that are outside of your control and influence. Like everything that's going on now, today, you think you know, but you don't know, right? So making sure that you understand, yes, this was a guidance that said no equity, but then just the other day, there are a couple of cases that were like, you cannot withhold federal funding because people are having these conversations.
Right.
That doesn't get the same press as the no DEI.
Hardly no press. Right. Hardly no press. It is really overwhelming feeling sometimes. And that's another reason why your book feels like hope to me when I read it. Okay, so at the heart of your book is what you called the EEC, the Equity Empowerment Continuum, your framework. It's a powerful framework. Could you walk us through it a little bit, the 4 phases, and what leaders should be doing by using the tool?
Yeah, so basically you have white, which is not about race. And that's the first thing people, oh my goodness, she's saying race. No, I'm not talking white. Absence of color, no color, meaning no action, nothing is going on in the space. But you're actually doing things to counter equity. So disinformation, wrong, giving misinformation, just literally not addressing issues that you could solve the issue. And so thinking about those kinds of situations where people are like, no, we don't have a problem here, even though it's clear that you have a problem.
Right.
Then you move into the light gray phase, which is like that performative phase. People that put on Facebook, Black Lives Matter, but then they go home and they say, yeah, all lives matter, but it's just performative.
Right.
Or we do things like we keep having committees to study issues that we know what the data already says, but that just makes it, not, nothing ever happens.
Right.
Then you just have all kinds of different situations where people just aren't really doing anything, but they say they're doing stuff. Then you get into dark gray, and I think that's probably where most people need to kind of be in bureaucracies.
Yes.
Like I remember my sister, my family, they would kind of, because I'm so passionate about this, but I work for the district. And one day my sister said, Latish, Dr. King did not have health care. So, inside of a bureaucracy, you're really walking a tightrope, but it's like pushing the organization to where it can be. So thinking about making sure you have things in writing, codified writings around what you expect to see. Everyone has amazing visions and mission statements, but what does that look like, and is it being monitored? Right? So that, and then we have the black phase. Now, there's a twist about the black phase, but you need to get the book. But what I will say is it's very difficult to really point to anything in our country world that has been ultimately the epitome of justice.
Yeah.
Right. But what we know is that there's this aspiration that's always. Our ancestors had an aspiration to be free, but they had no clue that these two Black women would be sitting here with terminal degrees or all of that, but they aspired to that. So when you talk about the hope, we got to keep that hope, and rest in peace, Jesse Jackson.
Yes.
Keep hope alive.
Yes.
And so those are just, different phases, and you're going to find yourself in different places throughout. But it's just a way to consider like what is actually happening.
So my big question, and this isn't even one of the questions I had on the list, is if I find myself in a place that is purporting to be dark gray, but I can tell it's either white or light gray, and I like my position. I'm not saying this is my position, but if I'm a person who is in that position and I'm just stuck in an organization where I've tried so hard to get people to understand what this feels like for me, most of the time in a position where I am usually the only one who is dark, or one of a few people who is dark. And it's really hard when you're in a space like that to speak up for yourself. You all are saying you're dark gray, but you really are light gray. We're being performative. What is one or two steps you would suggest that someone take?
Well, what I would say is taking inventory of the network. So there is a framework in the book called Your Iced Tea.
Oh, that was my next question. Yes, let's go into the IT.
Your identity, the context that you're working in, the experiences you're having because of that context and your identity, and then there's timing, right? And so you might have this thing that you want to do, and all we got to do is this. The organization may not be ready, set up to do it. And so, like, you can keep bumping up against it, but you could also look and take an inventory around you. Maybe it's not you that should be pushing the thing. Who else in the space can speak to that? And that's where you can lean into your influence and keep your mind. Because what ends up happening is you keep pushing up against a wall and your health fails and your spirit goes down.
Yep.
So it's you have to think about that context and who can be a real ally in the space. I have a great friend. She is a professor at a university in the South. I won't say her name, but with all of this her complete research agenda, blown up. And one day, she was like, oh, and she's an assistant professor. So like, you can fight the system, but they have ways of doing what they do. But she had some people that believed in her work. And she was like, I'm going to this meeting. I said, you be quiet. And you let those full professors speak on your behalf. So it's strategy. And I pull a lot from Dr. King's work. We look at the history books and it is written so pristinely. But that was a series of back and forth and step back and, oh, these people are coming from this area. Oh, now these white ministers are coming and they're going to be on the line with us. Like it's a lot that went into that. And we need to borrow a play from their playbook.
So the next question kind of like rolls right out of that when you're talking about operating in your sphere of influence. If I'm a teacher or a principal or a district leader right now, and it feels like my hands are tied and I really want my job, like I don't want to leave my job, should I just get in community with other people? Like, what should I do as a school principal if I really want to, especially now that they're saying you can't talk about this, you can't have this book, you can't do that. It just feels like a capsule that they've put us in where you're scared to even do or think some of the things that you should be getting done in your position.
So that is where it comes to actually knowing what's outside of your control. Like we hear these things, but what does that mean? And people have done all kinds of creative things to still make sure that it's human work. So for example, I worked with a school in Indiana. Indiana, I'm not from there, but I know that there can be a lot of pushback in some of those towns. This school was pretty balanced. You could tell there were different ideologies in the room, but I didn't start with the words that we can't say. I started with, what are our values in this school? And I pulled up their mission statement, and we basically deconstructed that statement and talked about what it looks like
in action.
And so you don't have to, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't say DEI because that's like a political football. If you say you're against that, then wow, But at the same time, you could call it civil rights work. We could call it abolitionist work if you want to, but it's about our core beliefs and values. And if we start operating from there and we're looking at data that says certain things about certain groups, then if we're not doing the things that we said we were doing in our mission statement, then that is a problem. And so building that common value is where we are, or where we could be at this time.
How do you keep going? I know you've had to been in situations where it felt like the resistance was overwhelming. How do you personally keep going?
Faith. And I am the mother of one child that
It was amazing.
and and I'm telling you, I am that mother, but I'm not like that over because he would have no parts of being any mama's boy, but he loves mama. But the work I did was for him because he is a tall, 6'1" black man who was brilliant. But I know that when people see him coming through the door, brilliant is not the first word that comes to their mind. And so when I did the work, I wanted to change people's perceptions and have them have some kind of tools that they can pull from where they can recognize their bias and look past it and mitigate that and literally teach the children that come through the door. And so my son and my God are the two things that really kept me going.
Oh, that is so beautiful. So, do you have any final, like if I said, just give us a final snippet before I ask you these closing questions in the rapid round? What is your final snippet for us as we, first of all, you got to get the book. I'm telling you, I don't even think I've ever promoted a book like that on one of the podcast episodes. But when I heard Latish speak, I knew that I had to dig into that because we talk around in circles, but what she has is some real examples and real things that you could do so you feel like you're actually accomplishing something while you're reading the book. Any final thoughts for us?
What I would say is take care of yourself. You can't do anything if you're not well.
Mm.
And that may mean stepping back a bit because it is overwhelming. Like I have not been in school for a couple of years, but I have been working in schools, like with school teams and some nonprofit work and some philanthropy work where I'm watching people whose core mission is around equity and watching everything seemingly be dismantled. It is taking a toll on their health. And so reminding people,
I know.
reminding people that wellness work is a part of equity work.
Mm.
I don't know, and I can't think of her name. Rest is resistance.
Oh, yes. Who was it? Wasn't Goldie Muhammad, was it?
No.
Can't remember. But yes, but
Shout out Goldie, we love your work too.
yes,
But
I have a book.
yes, pick it up because
Yeah.
it's important to make sure that we are caring for ourselves because if you have to leave the work, then somebody who may not care as much as you will pick up that mantle. So it's so important for you to take care of yourself so you can do this very, very difficult work.
Woo. What's one thing you wish, this rapid round, I have a couple questions. One thing you wish school leaders would stop doing today when it comes to equity work? Stop doing.
Stop being scared.
Okay,
But,
okay.
And like again, don't get me wrong. And I know it's rapid, so I gotta hurry up. Don't get me wrong. I get it. It's scary, but get some courage. Get some. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Ooh. What's one thing you hope readers walk away doing differently after finishing your book?
Caring for themselves and others in the way that was intended to build the kinds of societies, the kinds of schools, the kinds of students, the kinds of communities that we say we want to have.
Last one. Who inspired you? Is there a person or a moment that showed you what equity leadership could really look like? Who was the person or what was the incident?
I'm just gonna have to go back to my son.
Oh,
He inspires me. I mean that. I mean that. And as he's growing, and now 'cause now he's in college and he's getting, more stuff, and he's exposed to higher level thinking. But as he brings that back and we're able to have those conversations, I am forever inspired by my son, Zion.
Oh my God. So beautiful, so amazing. So, Dr. Reed, I can't thank you enough for this rich and beautiful conversation. The Complexities of Equity, Navigating Shades of Gray in Schools and Organizations is available on Corwin Press, right?
Right.
And we're going to put a link to your book in our show notes. Where else can people find you, follow your work, help us out?
I'm on LinkedIn, Latish Reed. I'm on Instagram, Latish Reed. I'm on Facebook, Latish Reed. I'm on TikTok. I'm Doc Reed on TikTok. But I would love to engage with people on those social media platforms.
Yes, and you do the best videos, best videos.
And it takes
They are
on
so
no God.
engaging. I want to share them every time I see one. But thank you so very much for being person number 44 on Urban Legends. You are officially an urban legend now. I got to get you your t-shirt. So I'll be in it this weekend.
Obama was 44.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I want to talk to you, President Obama. I moved all the way to Chicago.
Yes. Yes. Can't wait. Thank you so much, Dr. Latish.
Thank you for having me and keep doing the amazing work that you do.